Vivziepop and the Hazbin Hotel fandom are a bit out of control, to say the least, right now. The fandom has gone out of its way to harass people who even, slightly disagree to them, to the point that an actual Hazbin Hotel fan ended up committing due to the harassment they were receiving from fellow fans, and a Hazbin Hotel criticizer ended up getting attacked because of their statements against Hazbin Hotel and Vivienne Medrano. But this doesn't just start with the fandom. There are plenty of fandoms on the internet that do not get completely out of control like this, and I, along with many other people, believe that this starts with the creator, Vivienne. If you watched my first Hazbin Hotel video, I didn't really dive in too much on the creator of the show, but I did say that if people wanted me to talk about it, I would. And I did have several people end up reaching out saying that they wanted me to talk about Vivienne, as well as the working conditions for those who worked on Hazbin Hotel. Now, I am a busy, mentally ill college student, and to say the least, time got away from me a little bit. To the point that I kind of thought about abandoning this whole video idea, because I kind of thought it was old news at this point. But that was until I learned about some of the erratic behavior from these Hazbin Hotel superfans. That being said, this video will serve as a bit of a study into Vivienne Medrano and talk about how she ended up creating such a toxic work environment and fan base. So that being said, let's get into the woman herself. For the sake of time on this video, I'm not going to get into Vivienne's whole life story and talk about every single thing she did on the internet, because I would be here all day. But here's just some basic background information plus some other weird things I found about her. So Vivienne Medrano was born October 28th, one day after me, 1992, not same year, in Frederick, Maryland. Medrano began posting on YouTube under the name Vivziepop in the year 2012, but had posted previous content for her webcomic Zoophobia, which will come up later. She received a bachelor's degree in fine art in 2014 and worked as a freelance animator for a couple years afterwards. She continued to work on her comic Zoophobia until she dropped it in 2016 to focus on her first big project, Hazbin Hotel. She even founded the animation studio Spindlehorse Toons, which will also come up later, which primarily focuses on Hazbin Hotel, as well as Vivienne Medrano's other shows like Hell of the Boss, and also a couple animation films and things like that. So now that you have some basic background information on who this person is, let's get into some of the weirder aspects of Vivienne's past online presence. It's safe to say that Vivienne is pretty well known for her original characters. That's basically all Hazbin Hotel and Hell of a Boss are just Vivienne's OCs tied up with some cheap world building and storytelling, and that's kind of it. Now, assuming you saw my Hazbin Hotel video, you'd know that many of the characters in the show are a bit questionable, to say the least. From Rosie being basically the physical embodiment of blood libel, to Alistair being a whole bastardization of Haitian religion. I'm not really going to get into those, Hazbin Hotel specifically, for the sake of time, because I've already talked about it in another video, which you should go watch if you haven't already. But specifically, I want to talk about some of her other characters that don't really have the opportunity to get talked about as much, even though they are incredibly weird and problematic. So the first a couple OCs that I would like to talk about come from her webcomic Zoophobia. If you don't know what Zoophobia is, it's about this girl getting a job where she works around animal human hybrid things, but the problem is that she's scared of animals, and that's kind of the whole basic plot summary. I didn't end up reading it, I just skimmed the Wikipedia. But some of the characters in this are very strange. Even, I'm sure if I even had context for, them in the comic, it would still be a very questionable thing to do, especially with her character, Mirage. Mirage, based on my understanding from the Fandom Wiki, is one of the main antagonists of Zoophobia. She is a demon with, very classic, villain archetypes and tropes, such as, being intelligent but really combative. She's also, super manipulative and fearless, and she's also a PDF file. Viv has another character within her Zoophobia comic named Kestrel, who is canonically a 16-year-old boy. Now, I will say, to my understanding, I haven't found any information to say that they actually interact in the webcomic itself, but she has drawn fan art of Mirage and Kestrel together, and Mirage is really close and drooling over him, and the caption of it says that Mirage would love Kestrel in her own sick PDF-philic way. Weird as hell. Sure, Mirage is a villain, and I understand that, but I still think that it's very strange to, one, make your villain a PDF file, and to, second of all, draw them like drooling over your minor character, you know? It's very strange. And something to clarify on this is that I'm not saying that you can't have your character do bad things or be a bad person, but it's just a little weird to like make your quirky little character that she clearly liked drawing a file, you know, or a PDF file, you know. So like, to take an example, Judge Holden in Blood Meridian is a PDF file. Like, that is who he is, and he spends part of the book like hunting down this minor character because that's who he is. He's a PDF file, but he's also based on a real person who did those things, and it's understandable to make that character in your book a bad guy, but when you're making your own new original character, I just feel like it's a little strange, especially when that character is someone who can be, like, idolized in some ways. Like, not necessarily Mirage, but, like, talking about Valentino, people in the fandom love Valentino even though he's an abuser. That's what he is, you know? I don't know. It's just my opinion, though. Not only that, she's not even the only PDF file within Zoophobia. There's another one. There's two. There's two characters that she has drawn ship art of, who is another 16-year-old boy and then like a 42-year-old man. And it just does. Why would you do this? Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself here, but like, come on, dude. It's weird, okay? And like, I understand that she was younger than she is now when she worked on Zoophobia, but she was still an adult, you know? Like, she had graduated college by a lot of the time that she, like, was really posting heavily about Zoophobia. She should have known better. There's also weird, zoophilic, not zoophobic, zoophilic content, in the webcomic. I don't know if it's, like, a huge, like, present theme, but, there is, like, art that she has drawn. Specifically, the one I'm thinking of is art that she has drawn of, like, one of her characters with snakes. And it's very suggestive. Like, I can't show it in the video, obviously, but it'll be linked below. There's no, like, actual, like, genitals or anything like that, but there is implied nudity and implied sexual content. So look at your own risk, but it is very strange. Again, also, you should know better. And I mean, going back specifically to the ship art she made, this isn't the first time that she's sexualized abuse in general. Granted, Angel Dust and Blitzo are of age, but they still canonically are in very abusive relationships that tend to be glamorized by the fandom and sometimes by Medrano herself. Need I remind you that she openly hired someone who shipped Angel Dust and Val together and did like a whole bunch of weird art for it in a consensual, non-consent manner. Very strange, but moving on. And I get that Blitz and Solas's relationship is like one of the most popular ones within the fandom, but there still is like some very clear manipulation and power imbalance between the two. I just think it's very weird to be romanticizing abuse in this way, both from Medrano and the Hazbin Hotel fandom as a whole. Especially, like, I see people on Twitter all the time with Val as their like profile picture or like stan accounts for Val. He's I don't know if I could say it on the internet, but he's not a good guy, to say the least, you know? I just find it very odd. Another weird thing to do is to be friends with fascists. So for a while on Tumblr, Vivienne ran a sausage party, like, fan account where she would draw art and stuff. And that's like a pretty normal thing to do on Tumblr, draw fan art for your fandom, and then also, like, you know, hook up with other blogs and maybe do art exchanges or just become friends. But she became friends with someone who had some very questionable ideas, particularly about Jewish people. She was friends with an account titled I Hate Juice, except it wasn't spelled juice, if you get what I mean. She even did an art trade with them, and I kid you not, she drew a weird-ass cabaret Frankfurter, I don't know, sauce, or it was like, sauerkraut? I don't know. It's Adolf Hitler though. like if you look at it, it's like, oh yeah, that's Adolf Hitler in like a weird like bottle form. And I get that there is like a movie that's like that particular like drawing is based on, but if you look at the caption below, it says specifically that it's an art trade with I hate juice. So along with that, if you needed any further proof, I hate juice, I believe it was I hate juice, or it was another fascist account, had a OC that was also like a weird like sausage party kind of OC that was like a donut, and it was Joseph Mengele. If you don't know who Joseph Mengele was, he was a very high-ranking doctor within the Third Reich in 1930s Germany who experimented on Jewish prisoners in Auschwitz. So if you needed any further confirmation, there it is. Super cool, normal person to be friends with. And I'm not saying that like Vivienne herself is a fascist, but combining her friend choice with her representation of Jewish people or people who are implied to be Jewish, talking about Mimsy specifically, it just doesn't really look great. Not a great defense for sure. Now, for the sake of my mental health and time, I'm not going to go on like a long-winded deep dive looking into every single problem of Spindlehorse Productions, mostly because, as I said in the beginning, it is a bit of like old news at this point. I do want to mainly focus on Vivienne and her relationship with staff. So starting off on an absolute batshit note, Vivienne had, or at least previously, I should say, I don't know if she currently does, but she did at one point reach out to someone who worked for another studio and told them not to hire people who were already working on Hazbin Hotel, which is illegal, by the way. But yeah, she sent a private DM to someone who worked for another studio stating, "I don't want to cause a sitch. I have no control over my crew applying to other places, but we know a bunch of our team is joining blank. I'm hurt because they're going to be doubling work just as we start the episode I am legit most proud of. My supervisor wants me to let go of everyone doing both, and my gut says that that's a lot of people. Can you maybe try to hire outside of my current crew? Please. I know it's a big ask. It's just already hard enough to keep everyone on track and hitting deadlines. I just wish they'd tell me before they do so, I would assume. I don't know." For the next section, I am still going to be talking about Vivziepop, but given how Quiet on Set recently came out, the documentary about Nickelodeon, I thought it would be a good idea to kind of compare the Spindlehorse working conditions to Nickelodeon. I do want to say that, like, I'm not saying I am not saying that Vivziepop is as bad as like Dan Schneider, but I just wanted to basically give the Spindlehorse employees like more legitimacy in their concerns, you know, basically saying like, if you believe the Nickelodeon employees, why don't you believe the Spindlehorse employees? So that's what I'm doing, is just a brief comparison between the two, and then also talking about Vivienne and how she plays into that comparison. Along with that, you do not need to go watch Quiet on Set in order to understand what I'm talking about. I'm still going to explain everything. I'm basically just saying that this happened in both things, and they're both legitimate, you know? So, 1. Employees for both companies were underpaid. Specifically, when hired, female Nickelodeon employees and Spindlehorse animators were given a wage that may have initially seemed fair, but it actually turned out to be less than they deserved. Spindlehorse initially paid $35 for a second of animation. Now, that doesn't inherently seem too bad, but when you consider the fact that a second of animation requires like 12 drawings, that's like roughly $3 for a drawing, and that's basically nothing. Along with that, many employees feared speaking out because it would result in retaliation from Medrano and her fans, or in Nickelodeon's case, from Dan Schneider and the company. Speaking specifically in terms of fearing Vivziepop, it's not a healthy work environment to fear your boss. Duh. Like, you should be allowed to speak out and criticize or have questions without being scared of what's going to happen, or be scared of like teenagers online harassing you, you know? Just not great overall, I think. And work quickly became faster and faster with less time and more pressure. So for Nickelodeon, this was because Dan Schneider like openly said that he wanted to outdo himself with every episode and improve every time and do more and more. With Spindlehorse, it's a bit different. It's because they were like a newer animation company, production company. And so, you know, it was due to the fact that like they were new at this and they didn't really know what they were doing. But that's still unprofessional. You know, like you can't make the fact that you don't know what you're doing the problem of your employees. That's not fair. There's definitely more that workers of this company dealt with while they were working under Vivienne. And if you want to know more, I do have the passion fruit article linked below. Those were just a couple of things that I thought I should highlight for this video because, again, felt like it was old news, but still wanted to talk about it. Now that I'm done discussing Vivziepop specifically, I want to move more so to the fandom, because Vivziepop has fostered one of the worst fandoms I think I have ever seen, like toppling Voltron in how awful they are as a fandom. It's truly one of the worst. Trigger warning for the next sections for self-harm, death as a result of self-harm. So right out the gate, it's insane that I had to give that disclaimer for an internet fandom. Obviously, there was an internet user known as Shay, who was a major fan of Hazbin Hotel and looked up to Vivienne Medrano. They were an older Hazbin Hotel fan, and by that I don't mean that they were like older in old age. I mean that they originally became a fan of the show when the pilot was released and not from the Amazon special. In order to keep information like relatively brief, they enjoyed the show very much and really liked shipping characters. Specifically, they shipped Alistair with Angel Dust. Now, if you weren't aware or involved with the Hazbin Hotel fandom, it's important to note a couple things about this. For one thing, the Amazon release of the show revealed that Alistair is canonically asexual and aromantic, although this was not explicitly stated in the pilot. Even beyond that, the Radio Dust ship is not popular within the fandom. Most shippers would rather ship Angel Dust with Husk or even Valentino, unfortunately. Largely because of Shay's choice in the ship Radio Dust, they were relentlessly harassed and ultimately ended up committing due to the fact that they were targeted constantly all over a stupid ship from a fandom that revolves around an animated internet show. That's ridiculous. To clarify, I am not saying that it is ridiculous that they did that. I am saying that the harassment that they faced over that is absolutely ridiculous. It is insane. Nothing should be that important to you on the internet, dude. You should not go out of your way to harass another person because they like a thing that you don't. It's ridiculous. That is insane. Now, I do feel I need to clarify some of this information because someone who knew the victim personally is the one who released this information. They put it all into a Google Doc, which will be linked below. But they very clearly stated that they do not blame people who worked on the show, so they don't blame Vivziepop. They instead blame the fandom, which I completely understand and am all here for. Yeah, insane fandom behavior. So I'm smiling in the video and I feel like that gives it a really casual tone. I need to clarify that I am absolutely pissed. Like, I am so livid when I'm talking about it in the video. It's just that, like, if I don't smile, I'm gonna cry, you know? It is absolutely horrid, like, abominable. Like, it is mental hospital worthy behavior within this fandom. It is absolutely egregious. I cannot believe that they would do that to a person, you know? It is awful. Vivienne has exhibited very childish and immature behavior throughout the years, and I would almost say that it has radicalized the fans in a way. They look up to Vivienne so much. The fandom isn't even just about Hazbin Hotel, it's about Vivienne. Vivienne is the core of all of this, because again, all of these shows just revolve around Vivienne's OCs with some mediocre writing, and that's kind of it. Like, the main focus of the fandom really is around her. So for her to exhibit this childish behavior, not be willing to accept criticism, in fact going out of her way to surround herself with people who make fun of those who criticize her, it doesn't give a good role model to the fandom. And I really mean the word role model because they look up to her so much that they call her mom. Like, she very clearly is a central figure in all of this. And, like, don't get me wrong, I don't think it's necessarily a weird thing that they call her mom. I do think it's weird how centered she is in all of this, though. Like, if someone releases content, like myself, I release content on the internet, but my content is, like, me. I talk about other things, but, like, the main focus of my channel is me, is the guy in the camera that you're seeing right now, you know? I'm not releasing an animated show. And if I was, the fandom should be centered around the animated show, not around me and the things I say, you know? But with the Hazbin Hotel and Hell of a Boss fandom, it is largely centered around Vivziepop, and she has an immense amount of power that I don't know if she recognizes fully. Now, I'm not blaming her for Shay's death. Again, I do want to make that very clear. I am blaming the fandom. But I'm not going to just sit here and deny Vivziepop's role in creating this incredibly toxic environment. It's just really sad that the internet has gotten to this point where, like, you can't just like a thing. You have to you have to defend it with your life. Like, you have to go out there and harass other people and like just just do horrible things because you like a show. It is insane. All in all, it's really just a horribly depressing situation, but it's something that I felt the need to talk about because it is absolutely insane. It is wild. It is not something that should be happening, and these people should be held accountable for sure. In summary, I believe that Vivienne Medrano has fostered one of the most hostile working environments and specifically fandoms on the internet right now. And I believe that her lack of accountability and the fandom's lack of humility is something that I and many people will not forget for a very long time. Thank you for watching. Stay safe, free Palestine, and have a good rest of your week.